Well, if you want to go back to 1958, when I first became acquainted with chiropractic, there was no licensure in New York State at the time. Everybody that was practicing without a license, so they could be picked up at any time and put in jail. So Reggie came in 1958, that's when we met. And when he opened the practice, he always had a bag pack because we never knew when somebody was going to come by and pick him up, take him to jail. We had no idea if that was going to happen. The law was passed in 1962, something like that. And at the time in New York State, we had 5,000 chiropractors practicing in the state of New York. And the Chiropractic Association said, let's go after this, get a foot in the door. You've heard this foot in the door before. And we'll get whatever we can get. And then next year we'll change the law. So they passed the law, couldn't x-ray anybody below the second lumbar vertebra, and other things that you couldn't do at all. And they passed that law. And everybody had to take a test. Didn't have my class. We didn't have classes then. Everybody, whether you were out of school for 50 years or you graduated yesterday, everybody had to take a test to get a New York State license. And as a result of that, we went from 5,000 chiropractors to 1,200 chiropractors and a number of suicides at the same time in order to get this. By the way, the law did change 25 years later. That was the change. They were waiting for tomorrow for it to happen. So every chiropractor's in practice. Nobody's got insurance. Nobody's got Medicare because it didn't even exist at that time. Remember, Medicare didn't come in until 1965, and nobody knew about chiropractic. Not only that, there's no internet, there's no phone service, and the chiropractors pass a law making it illegal to advertise. Illegal to advertise, so you can't even tell anybody about chiropractic. And these people, how did they do it? How did these people build such a big practice with nothing and no way to tell anybody what chiropractic was? But they did that. And I think back, what about BJ? What the heck was going on in 1910 and 1920? What was happening all of those years? And they were filling the schools with people. It's unbelievable to me. I don't know. When we look at it, it's just an amazing thing to me that the world could find out about chiropractic with no way to communicate except person to person. That's how it was done.
It's a good lesson for us today, Irene.
I'll say.
Talk about Kitty Scallon.
When I graduated from, by the way, we did not graduate from the NYCC. I did not graduate. I graduated from the Columbia Institute of Chiropractic, okay? Before you guys got to be called NYCC. I graduated 1 year before, 1 year after Sherman opened up. Sherman opened up in 1973 in September. And I didn't graduate until September of 1974. Once I went to teach at the school, we always had people coming in, and one of the people who came into our school was Kitty Scallon. Now, you heard about Kitty Scallon earlier this weekend. She was the woman who was put in jail for practicing chiropractic without a license, because nobody had a license. That's the way it was at that time. And I would take her in my class and sit her up on the stage, like we're sitting in here, and I would ask her questions. And we had a whole, and that's how it was great. You know, she told us about jail. She told us how wonderful chiropractic was. She told us all. It was just terrific.
Awesome. Irene, you wanted to talk about the Atlanta board review?
The what?
Atlanta board review you just did?
Oh, you mean the one that I just had?
Yeah.
Okay. I teach in a whole lot of schools. I teach Part 3, this last time out, at Palmer College, Davenport, and Logan College in St. Louis. And Daytona, and I taught at also in Atlanta. But my class in Atlanta is special. My class in Atlanta is a group of people who either are out of school 30 or more years, who want to go to another state. They live in New York, Connecticut, New Jersey, and they want to get a Florida license. And because of that, they have to take Part 3 and Part 4. And I was teaching Part 3 at the time. There were 6 of them in the class. The rest of the class were all people who were fairly new graduates, who had been out of school maybe a year, 2 years, 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, had taken this test twice a year, and could never pass the test. Could never pass the test. It's a special class I hold every 6 months, and I hold it in Atlanta because it was a more convenient place, I thought, to hold it. And they come in to the class with absolutely zero knowledge, many of them. They know some of the words. Sometimes they don't remember what the words mean, but they come in with very, very little knowledge. And they come in defeated. They've tried this before. They didn't pass. And no matter what they did to make, and many of them studied really, really hard, couldn't pass this test. So for 7 days, I work with these people. And when the 7 days are up, they have another week, and then they go ahead and take the test. I don't know how it happens, but every single time I teach this class, after 7 days, they go from no knowledge on day 1 to almost experts by the time the 7th day comes. They know all the words, they can pick out all the answers, they can do everything. And I very, very rarely, ever, have anybody fail that test. They're taking the test with everybody who's in school. Everybody in school. So I wanted to show you just one thing, because every once in a while, one of these people send me a letter afterward. To this day, I do not understand how it happens. I do not understand how you take somebody from absolutely nothing to making them competent test takers in 7 days. I don't really know how it happens. But just to give you an idea, one guy came to the class, and this is what he wrote to me. 388 was the score that made me forget how to count. I knew that the score lacked an asterisk, because without an asterisk it means you failed. It lacked an asterisk, but at the time I couldn't remember if that was good or not. I had to read and reread the score to allow myself to comprehend that 388 does indeed come after 375. 375 was the passing grade. And that I finally passed Part 3 of National Boards. This is my 4th time taking the exam in a 2-year span. The only test that prevented me from moving on to the future I had always envisioned for myself. I passed, Irene, and I have you to thank. I recently took your Atlanta tutoring class. I was the tall, long-haired, quiet gentleman who didn't like to be called on. And day after day, you pounded questions and vignettes into our heads. And when it came time to take the exam, all I could hear was your voice and the lessons that you provided. That voice, your voice, helped me achieve what now seems to be a miracle. Many of you have been talking about miracles among your patients. I have a miracle too. And these miracles happen all of the time. I don't know how it happens. I don't question how it happens. But I do know that when you give 100% in what you do, you can't go wrong.
I need to say one thing. So shortly after I had graduated chiropractic school, I helped Irene teach in some of her areas.